First Minister in Canada, from Quebec, from the provinces, from the territories, Government of Canada agreed on a plan to build Canada strong, one Canadian economy out of 13.
I have to tell you, it was the best meeting I've ever been in the last 7 years. I said 10 years, but 7 years I've been in office. Very productive. It was very respectful around the table. We're united.
Prime Minister Mark Carney and Ontario Premier Doug Ford there, one day out from the new Prime Minister's first sit-down in person with Canada's premiers since the election. The general consensus appears to be, as you heard there, that the meeting went well. But what will it take to turn the good vibes into action on big nation-building projects that the Prime Minister has promised? Let's bring in the front bench to talk about that. Brian Gallant, Lisa Raitt, Tom Mulcair, and Laura Stone are all back. So Laura and I were in Saskatoon. We were, very much trying to discern like what tangibly came out of the meeting for a long time yesterday. I'm not sure we reached any concrete conclusions, Laura. What do you think the key will be in? I think it's fair to say there were very, very good vibes. Like you couldn't find a single person behind the scenes who would say anything negative about the meeting. But what will you be watching for insofar as like turning that into something real?
Well, there's clearly a tremendous amount of goodwill around the table for Prime Minister Carney. We heard from Alberta Premier Danielle Smith heading into the meeting. I think she was ready to drop the gloves if she was unhappy with how it went. Obviously, there was enough of an agreement there around the table that she felt that Mr. Carney was taking the industry in her province seriously. So there is very much a lot of goodwill. I don't think, though, that there's a lot of patience, particularly with the public, right? I mean, the Prime Minister does have to move or signal that he's moving on some of these nation-building projects, which we don't know specifically what they are. The Prime Minister gave some examples during the meeting. We heard from the provinces and territories which ones those are, and we expect some legislation to come out. And I think that's why maybe the federal government held back yesterday on naming them. They want to put forward this legislation and pass it before they name the nation-building projects. But all we've heard from Mr. Carney and the premiers and Doug Ford is that how time is of the essence. We're under attack from President Trump. The tariffs today only bolster that argument. So I think there has to be some sign that we are going to get big projects built. And so when that happens, I don't know, but I don't think he can spend another kind of 6 months without telling the public which ones are going forward and without showing people that shovels are, in fact, in the ground on some of these projects.
Brian, you sat around that table on many different instances. What do you make, first of all, of how it seemed like everyone was almost like in shock that the focus was solely on the economy in that discussion? But also, what challenges did you experience in, like, turning whatever happened there into something?
I have sat around that table. I wasn't invited this time, just for clarity. So look, I think I think Laura's bang on. I would add that the idea that you go to the premiers and you basically say, what big projects do you have, is a wonderful way to kickstart a meeting. It's a wonderful way to sort of reset the relationship. That said, I do want to just nod to the idea, though, that since Carney has become the Prime Minister, he has put in a big effort in a very short period of time. He's already had quite a few meetings, quite a few briefings with the premiers in formal ways, and I'm sure in informal ways as well. And we know that Minister LeBlanc had been working incredibly hard for years, frankly, and certainly in the last few months. And I know he was there as well at the meeting. So I think it's a lot of goodwill right now. And again, going to the premiers and saying, we want to do your big projects is pretty exciting, I think, for them. It's exciting for the country. But as Laura points out, people are probably going to be impatient. I think it's a great start, though, to have people on board, to have a sense that everybody's on the same team. And that will actually, I think, help expedite some of these projects and help in the action of getting it done and put pressure on Parliament to pass some of the things that they'll need to pass along the way. So it's a great start. But of course, getting these big projects done has been a real difficulty over many years and many governments. So we'll see the proof in the pudding over the next little while.
Yeah, it's been difficult for a lot of reasons, Lisa. In this instance, and Brian mentioned this, one of the things that will be key is Parliament, right? Because this isn't a majority government. I thought it was interesting that they seem to signal that they're going to put the one project legislation in. It sounds like it's going to be the same legislation as the internal trade barrier legislation. Strategically, what do you think of that?
You know, I want to be joyous and happy, and I want to be optimistic and positive because these are the things that we want to have happen in our country. But there's a lot of potholes and there's a lot of hurdles along the way. And I think one thing that I would encourage people to remember is that the glory isn't for the politician that announces the project. The glory is for the politician that is there when the project's completed. And these projects, they're not going to be completed in the time frame of Mr. Carney's prime ministerial time. These are very long-term projects. Maybe you'll get a shovel in the ground. But the fact that they're going to try to take up an effort to actually get them going and underway, that's a lot to be lauded. I also believe, though, that they are doing what politicians oftentimes say needs to happen, which is we will put in place the conditions needed to have business to actually drive the economy and make the investment and create the jobs. So basically, it's over to you guys. Here's everything that we've done. It's now up to you to invest. And if I know something about Canadian business, I know that business investment in Canada has been dropping like a stone in the last 40 years. So they're, no pun intended there, Laura, but they have been absolutely not keeping up with what needs to happen here in Canada. And as a result, it's easy for politicians to say we did everything. Business wasn't with us. So I hope business leaders are listening, and I hope that people don't lose their nerve to do the right thing when it comes to this. And the politics of putting it together in a bill, honestly, Vashi, if Canadians don't see it building something or coming together on it, I would say be careful if you're trying to get reelected in the country. They're going to be watching.
I think there is like an interesting sort of dynamic as well, as Lisa mentioned, Tom, with a lot of consensus around that table yesterday at creating the conditions for private investment, like some premiers emphasizing it more than others. We also did see at the same time, though, other premiers say that they hope there'd be federal money for the projects that they were pitching. How do you think those two things will happen?
Well, I think that some of the things that were so positive had to do with form. I really held on to Doug Ford's words when he said it was respectful. Now, you didn't have to talk about Justin Trudeau for everybody to understand that that's what he was talking about. And it's so refreshing to see Mr. Carney say, we're all going to be meeting in Saskatoon. And lo and behold, Premier Moe over the weekend saying, it's been 40 years. 40 years since the other provinces and the feds have shown up here. So that in and of itself was a signal. And yes, it had more to do with form than substance, but it informed. It gave the form to the rest of the meeting. Premier Legault was attacked really strongly by the two separatist parties. Yes, one wasn't enough. We have two separatist parties now in Quebec City by Ottawa and Quebec Solidaire this afternoon in question period because he dared go to a meeting with Ottawa and have things go well. Newfoundland and Labrador have a project on Gull Island. They've signed a renewed and they've rewritten a massive hydroelectric deal with Hydro-Quebec that was always a thorn in their side because they thought the initial deal was super unfair to them, and I guess it was. And now Quebec is on board, and now the feds are saying, you know what, this is exactly the type of nation-building project. We want to help you bring that electricity down from Labrador through Quebec, and we're going to be there as partners. And of course, Legault was getting attacked for it. Legault, very similar to Doug Ford, went one step further and he goes, this is the first time, and he's in his 7th year now, he's finishing his 7th year. He says, this is the first time I've gone to a federal provincial meeting on the economy where we've talked about the economy. And he was full of praise for Mark Carney, saying this guy actually is on that page, and that's Legault's page as well. So it's just one province, but it's the one where I happen to live and work, and I was noticing the reaction of the public to this, and the separatist parties can, whinge and whine and moan all they want. Legault got something yesterday, and the country as a whole got something. An understanding that we're much stronger when we work together. That's Wab Kinu's line as he came out of yesterday's meeting, and I think it was the best way to summarize it.
Okay, I have to leave it on that note. Kind of shocking how many premiers yesterday on the record said we haven't had a meeting about the economy like this in a long time, but I digress. We're all looking ahead now. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate the discussion. Brian Gallant, Lisa Ray, Tom Mulcair, and Laura Stone.